Okay, welcome back world. Thank you for being here. So in my last video I finished it with basically saying let's look at some tools, some tips to help or support with leadership. Now I'm going to kick the boat off, kick the ball, get the ball rolling. I'm going to start with the one thing that I believe that without your leadership will be lacking, and it's something that we can give ourselves, but the majority of the time when we work with people or teams or even if it's one-on-one as a leader, we want to be able to provide this for our people, and I'm not going to wait hours for you to find out what it is. This one tool that I believe to be the most useful and most critical element for any type of not only leadership but personal interaction where we want to perform and we want others to perform at their natural best is what we call psychological safety. Now you may have heard of psychological safety before, but it's basically, and I have it written down here, the psychological safety definition by Amy Edmondson states that psychological safety is the ability to show and employ oneself without fear of negative consequence or self-image, status or career. So let me read that again. Psychological safety is the ability to show and employ oneself without fear of negative consequence of self-image, status or career. In teams, it can be defined as a shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. We feel accepted and respected. So there's a few points there that I want to pick up on. Without fear of negative consequence. So we don't feel that we're going to be subjected to ridicule or judged based on our ideas or our thought patterns. And we feel safe for interpersonal risk. So that's sharing ideas or interacting with others on a level that really allows us to kind of be brave, be bold, and put ourselves out there. So what I want you to think of is our brain is designed to do one thing and one thing alone, and that's to keep us alive. That's why it's so easy to stay in bed in the morning, and why we don't want to, we don't necessarily want to do things all of the time, like sitting watching TV or reading a book or eating junk food or playing games. Our brain not only gets dopamine from these elements, but it also understands that it's safe. We're inside and we're safe. And that's all our brain really wants to do, is keep us alive. So we have a primal instinct. You may have heard of the 3 F's, fight, flight or freeze, but there are other elements. For example, one is called flop. We often see this in children. If you make a child jump, they often flop to the floor and they become relaxed or floppy is one of the better words. We have befriend or to friend. Sometimes if there's elements that we are unsafe or we feel unsafe, we will try and befriend the thing that's providing the risk or the threat. Forgo or forget, and these are the ones that often how we react after the fact of a trauma or of a risk or perceived threat, should we say. Now, we don't live in the age of saber-toothed tigers, so our brain no longer requires that aspect to keep itself safe. But what it does do is it finds other parts of the world around us that we perceive as a heightened state of emotion. So this could be going into an interview, this could be providing or sharing your thoughts in your first team meeting, it could be speaking out to your colleagues or challenging even your managers or your line managers. It could be asking for better leadership. Anything that gets your palms sweaty or your heart racing can cause this amygdala hijack to kick off, and we can react in ways that aren't necessarily the best for us. Now, the reason I talk about this primal instinct is because for situational leadership, we can change how we interact with people. And to be good at our leadership skills, we want to rely on psychological safety, or being able to provide that psychological safety. If you've ever overcome adversity, or you've ever felt supported in something that was maybe not fully thought out, or provided an element of unknown or an unfamiliar consequence, but your leaders or your people around you have supported you, then they have provided you with psychological safety. There's no fear of rejection or damage to who you are as an individual. You yourself is not being judged. The task or the suggestion may be critically analysed, but that's not a personal attack, because you feel safe to give out that idea or that thought, let's say. So, just referring to my notes, the great thing is about psychological safety is that it helps us give better feedback, better coaching or mentoring. It helps us with disciplinaries. It helps us with goal settings or delegations. It helps us with resolving conflict, for example. There's really good ways of using psychological safety to make sure that both you and your people around you are comfortable. And that's kind of what we want, because when we're comfortable, we can work at our natural best. Like, we feel capable of being able to give our all, you know. We're not stressed, we're not worried, there's nothing going on that keeps us out of the present moment. And when we empower people to be present, especially in a working environment, we give the space for people to be themselves. Now, what are some of the things that you can do for building psychological safety? So I'm going to give you three things that you can do. The first thing that I want us to think about is promoting self-awareness. So when we understand why we do what we do, or we understand what the people around us are doing, or why they might be doing what they're doing, we get to experience a heightened level of awareness or knowledge of a given situation. And there are ways that you can provide self-awareness. You could go online. There are many tools that range from free to paid for, like Myers-Briggs based self-awareness tests, 16 personalities. I'm not sponsored by any of these. I'm laughing because I've got like 3 followers, so just in case YouTube's listening and they're like, whoa, he's mentioning things. Yeah, go online and look for self-awareness tests or self-awareness profiles, let's say. Now, if you are a leader or you have the opportunity to pay for certain things, then I recommend highly going and seeking out really good self-awareness tools, and start purely just by having your team understand themselves. Once they learn why they do what they do, or what drives them, whether it's emotions, whether it's thought patterns, whether it's fact or intuition, whatever it might be, you can then start to understand where people's potential blind spots might be. For example, those that think outside of the box and very much blue sky thinking, they're not going to resonate as much with somebody that's very fact and detail oriented, somebody that's very focused and structured. Now, that doesn't mean they can't work together. Absolutely they can. But what we want to be able to do is ensure that they both understand what the other requires. Those that are blue sky thinking need that time and that space to think outside of the box, to be able to think of all the possibilities that could be available. And when they come together with somebody that is focused in detail, it's about setting the expectations or the requirements to be able to understand. So maybe it's, let's build a structure, let's write this down, let's focus on specific aspects of getting there. There's a great game called The Folded Truth. It's something that I kind of created up of a school game, the story with a folded piece of paper. So it's a storytelling activity that you do in a team. You get a piece of A5 paper, put your name at the top, and what I want you to do is, with every question, fold it down, and it becomes a little bit like a concertina that you can read at the end. So with every new question, you find a new person, and with every new person, they write down an answer to the question. Now, when we find out, when we ask these questions, these aren't questions based on you as an individual. They're based on your perception or people's perception of who you are. So some questions might be, where do you see me most comfortable? Now, you could say, I see you most comfortable at the office, or out in nature, or with friends, or reading a book. You then fold it down once you've written your answer down, and you pass it on to the next one. You can ask simple questions like, which place would I go on holiday? Now again, maybe they know a little bit about you. Maybe you like to go camping, maybe you like to spend time at home, or go and visit friends, or go abroad, or go somewhere hot or cold, or wet or dry. There's so many opportunities that you could share when it comes to holiday locations. You could use cinema genres. What genre of cinema do you think I'm into? Or what 3 words do you think I, the person who is asking the question, would say to describe you, the person answering the question? So then it's the person that is answering writing down the 3 words based on what they perceive you might say about them, for example. And I'll put all of this down in the description so you understand the folded truth. But the idea behind the folded truth is that once you've gone around and you've asked a group of people, you unfold it and you get an element of like a story or perceived story of who they believe you might be and what you do. And the great thing here is to build self-awareness. Not only do you understand how you are perceived, but you can also build on the second element out of the 3 elements that help with psychological safety, and that is transparency. When we're transparent, we're allowing people to learn more about us. We are not hiding anything from anybody. We are maintaining a certain amount of honesty, and we're providing the information to the people that need it. Now, obviously you can be too transparent. You can, I'd never say be transparent to the point where you put your company or what you do under the microscope if it's confidential. But when it comes to elements, maybe mistakes that have been made, or reasons for letting people go, for example, be transparent in terms of everything that you've done, because there's nothing worse than letting people go without the business understanding why. Our imaginations are great at filling in the gaps, and if we allow them to fill in the gaps, rumours spread, people become unhappy and no longer feel psychologically safe. So the great thing about transparency is that you can be transparent, you can provide the information to the people that need it, and our success is dependent on those people around us. So if we can give those people around us the opportunity to understand not only who we are and why we do what we do, but also to understand that we are sharing everything that we can in an honest and candid way, it starts to breed that element of trust between each other. And then the final point that I wanted to talk about is being vulnerable. Now, as a leader, and I don't mean like vulnerable in terms of bearing your soul with people, but what I do mean is it's trust-based vulnerability, or vulnerability-based trust, should I say. And what that does is it starts a vulnerability loop, which I think was first discussed in like the 1960s civil rights movement. But it's a way of basically saying, look, we're all human. You know, we all make mistakes. And as a leader, you need help from your people just as much as they need help from you. You know, you need them to come to you and ask for what type of leadership you need. You want to be able to share with them the things that you're not necessarily good at and why they in your team support that. Because there will be people in your team that are better at doing certain things than you, and you'll be better at doing certain things than them. Just because you're a manager doesn't mean that you know everything that's going on. That assumption in itself is ridiculous, so we can throw that out the window for now. Not for now, forever. But the point that I'm trying to make is that being vulnerable with your people, letting them know who you are as an individual and where not only you as a leader need help, will allow them, as I said, the vulnerability loop, to open up and be more vulnerable with you. And if we can be vulnerable with the people around us, then we are now psychologically safe, or we feel psychologically safe within that given environment. Being able to put your hand up and say, yeah, I fluffed up, I made a mistake, this is just how it is. We're human, we make mistakes, it happens. So being psychologically safe is the bedrock of great leadership. And I urge you to reach out to me. Go ahead and write down in the comments if you have a team that's like. So as I was saying before my battery died, go ahead, write down in the comments if you have any queries or questions around leadership or how to embed psychological safety, or if you yourself have felt psychologically safe at work, or you haven't felt psychologically safe at work. What did you do about it? What worked well for you? Anyway, folks, I will say thank you for being here, and I will love you and leave you, and I will see you in the next one.